What is going on, guys? Welcome back into another video. With the launch of Season 21, it brought a ton of new seasonal artifact perks that give us a ton of flexibility with our builds. And since a ton of these perks help feature our Arc subclass and our Arc weapons, it gives us the ability to use exotic weapons and armor that have probably been on the shelf for quite some time. Now, in this video, I'm going to show you a build that takes advantage of the Fallen SunStar, which is an exotic helmet for the Warlock, and combines it with some of the amazing aspects and fragments within Arc 3.0 that helps make this build hands down the best ad clear build in the game right now. We're also going to touch on some weapons that synergize extremely well with this setup, along with some armor mods that take this to the next level so you can dominate inside of PvE for the entirety of Season 21. Now, before we get into it, if you're enjoying the content on the channel, feel free to hit that thumbs up and sub to the channel. It definitely helps me out, and I really appreciate all of the amazing support. Now, to start things off, the Fallen SunStar is an exotic helmet for the Warlock, and it does have the armor perk on it called Ionic Conductor. Now, this allows ionic traces you create to move faster and to grant you additional ability energy. Nearby allies also gain ability energy when you collect an ionic trace. Now, basically the way this works is that ionic traces are going to move faster and grant doubled ability energy. The total ability energy gain per ionic trace while this is equipped is going to be 25% for your grenade, 25% for your melee, and 30% for your class ability. Also, allies within close range are going to receive a 10% grenade, melee, and class ability energy every time you pick up an ionic trace as well. Now, moving over to our subclass and our super of choice for this setup, and that is going to be the Chaos Reach. Now, this allows you to unleash a long-range channeled beam of concentrated arc energy. Sustained damage on a single target creates a jolting lightning strike at their position as well. And I'm pairing that up with the Healing Rift for our class ability, which is going to play a huge role in this setup. We're also using the Ball Lightning for our melee and the Pulse Grenade, which is going to help us with map control. Now, moving over to our aspects, the first one we're going to be using is the Arc Soul. Now, this allows you to cast your Rift to create an Arc Soul that fires at targets in front of you. Allies can pass through your Rift to get an Arc Soul as well. Your Rift charges faster when allies are near. While amplified, your Arc Souls are supercharged and gain increased fire rate. Now, to me, this aspect is kind of the bread and butter of this build, since we're going to be creating so many ionic traces and we'll be producing so many orbs of power with some of the armor mods that we'll have equipped, so we should have our Arc Soul up non-stop. And the second aspect we're going to be using is the Electrostatic Mind. Now, this allows you to defeat targets with arc abilities or to defeat jolted or blinded targets to create an ionic trace. Also, collecting an ionic trace makes you amplified. Now, moving over to our fragments, the first one I'm using is going to be Spark of Ions. Now, this is going to allow us to defeat a jolted target to create an ionic trace. And I'm pairing that up with Spark of Shock, which allows your arc grenades to jolt targets. Now, you do get a -10 to discipline here, but honestly, this is a great one to use because it synergizes extremely well with the setup. We're also using Spark of Discharge, which allows your arc weapon Final Blows to have a chance to create an ionic trace. Again, this one's going to have a -10 to strength. And the last one we're using is going to be Spark of Amplitude, which allows rapidly defeating targets while you are amplified to create an orb of power. Now, moving over to the armor side of things and some stats that I would really focus on with this build, and the two main ones are going to be Resilience and Recovery, with a minor focus on Discipline. Again, we're going to be getting our abilities back so often with the amount of orbs and ionic traces that we're going to be producing with this setup. So to me, if you can focus on those three stats, I think you're going to be in good shape. Now, in terms of armor mods, I'm starting here off on my helmet, and I'm throwing on an Ashes to Assets mod, which is going to allow us to gain bonus super energy on our grenade kills. And I'm also throwing on a double arc siphon mod, which allows our rapid arc weapon Final Blows to create an orb of power. And since we're featuring arc weapons with our setup, we should have orbs of power all over the place. Now, moving over to our gauntlets, the first one I'm throwing on here is going to be a fastball mod. And I'm pairing that up with a firepower mod, which allows your grenade Final Blows to create an orb of power as well. And I'm also throwing on a heavy-handed mod, which allows your powered melee Final Blows to create an orb of power. Now, moving over to our chest, the only mod you really need to throw on here is going to be a charged up mod. This is going to increase the maximum number of stacks of armor charge you can carry by 1. Now, I also paired this up with a double harmonic resistance mod, which reduces incoming arc damage from combatants, but again, I would throw on whichever resistance mods fit well into the activity you're trying to do. Now on my legs, I'm throwing on a recuperation mod, which replenishes health each time you pick up an orb of power. And I'm pairing that up with a double arc weapon surge mod, which allows your arc weapons to gain a small bonus to damage while you have any armor charge. Your armor charge now decays over time. Now to round things out here on my bond, I'm throwing on a bomber mod, which is going to reduce our grenade cooldown when we use our class ability. And I'm pairing that up with the powerful attraction mod, which automatically collects nearby orbs of power when we activate our class ability. And a time dilation mod, which is going to allow your decaying armor charge to have a longer duration. Now moving over to our seasonal artifact perks, and there are a few of them here that synergize extremely well with the setup that we're using. The first one I'd recommend is going to be the authorized mods arc. Now this is going to reduce the cost of your arc weapon mods to 1 energy cost for your armor, which is huge, so you can add more perks to the armor if you need to. The next one I'm going to recommend is going to be the electric armor perk, which allows you to stay amplified longer while you're using your arc subclass. Now this is going to increase your amplified by 20 seconds, which is huge. Now another one I'm going to recommend is thunderous retort. Now this is really nice because while at critical health or amplified, it's going to give you a 30% increase to your arc super damage, and again, that's going to synergize extremely well with the super that we're using in our build. The next one I'm going to recommend is going to be the amped up perk, and this is great because while you're amplified, you're going to get a 30% damage resistance, which is really going to lean into our survivability. The next one I'd recommend is going to be shock and awe, which is while you're amplified, arc kills can summon a burst of lightning, dealing up to 141 damage and jolting in a pretty close radius. I do believe this has about a 5-second cooldown, but it's actually really good and can take out hordes of enemies if you get them together. And the last one that I'd recommend is going to be lightning strikes twice, which is on grenade ability usage. While on the arc subclass, you get a 130% additional grenade based recharge rate for 5 seconds. Arc kills increase the buff duration by 3 seconds and up to 20 seconds. Now moving over to the weapon side of things with this setup, you have a ton of great options in terms of arc weapons that you could use that would synergize extremely well with this setup. For myself, I've been using a crafted Akelos SMG with threat detector and volt shot on it. It really pairs up well with some of the fragments and aspects that we're using. I've also been using Grand Overture, which is an exotic LMG, to do most of my DPS with. It does great burst damage, and it actually works really well inside of the dungeon if you guys are trying to go through that and solo it. Now to wrap things up, guys, this hands down is my favorite PvE build in the game right now for Season 21. It provides a ton of ad clear, some great survivability, and allows you to spam your abilities so you can take control of any situation you're in inside of PvE during Season of the Deep. Now, as always, guys, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for this setup, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. I love to hear what you guys are using in-game, and I really value your opinion. Guys, thanks again for stopping in and checking out this video. I really hope this build helps you out for the remainder of Season 21, and I will plan on seeing you all in the next video.